A lot of people don't know that we belong to a league of superheroes.
It's true.
And this league is responsible for one thing, and that's smelling bad.
Yeah.
So you're the leader.
Whew.
But if we could join a league of our own choice, it would be the Justice League. Now, a Justice League movie came out. We'd clean up the place.
Yeah.
They got a shit, right?
It's true.
Even Superman shits. You heard it here first, the kids.
It's true.
No, but last year, November 2017, it's the right year, right? Justice League came out, and it was kind of like the conclusion of the first stage of the DCEU, if you will.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers vision for their superhero division. And, it goes without saying that this entire series has been riddled with controversy. We don't see it that way because we fucking absolutely love these movies. If you want to get more insight on that, check out our videos where we talk about Wonder Woman, the original theatrical release of Justice League, etc.
We constantly bring up BVS.
Yeah.
We haven't made a specific video for it, but we do constantly bring it up.
The point is that we are not on the bandwagon of, we hate everything DC is doing, because there's so very little that we see to hate there. There's, in fact, I dare say there's nothing to hate there. But that's not a popular opinion. But we don't give a fuck about being popular, clearly, by the views on our channel.
It's true.
We're here about liking what you like, and we happen to like the DCEU in the direction it was going in. And I think it's safe to say that statement is true now. The direction it was going in.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be an upheaval, there's going to be a change, and the direction will change. But for now, what we have, I think the movie we got provided a satisfactory conclusion to this first arc. So in a sense, we will always have at least a part of that vision in some form of complete state.
Yeah.
Versus the bigger picture, if you will. But what we're talking about today is Justice League, specifically the conclusion to that initial story arc. And not just Justice League, we already talked about that.
Yep.
We're talking about the Justice League Ultimate fan cut, recently released re-edit from a couple of people. Wish we could credit them, but we tried to look up. The information is in the actual movie.
Yeah.
If you see it, but we're too lazy to go back and see it. But point is, we'll credit them in the. It's not like we did the cut, obviously not. But
clearly did not do the cut.
But we're not known for edits.
Nope.
Cut to silence, and we're back. See, we didn't edit that out.
Nope.
The point is, it's called the Ultimate Fan Cut because it was made by people that were interested in preserving the feel and vision that Zack Snyder started when he started the universe. And anyway, give us a quick rundown of some of the changes affected in this particular version.
The changes that I know of, obviously I don't know every single one because it's been a while since we saw Justice League, the original cut. But the ones that I read about and know about are that they changed the soundtrack. They cut down on the more, quote, cringy humor scenes. They definitely changed the color scheme. And they added a couple shots from BVS.
And also, on top of that, they reintegrated footage that was excised from the theatrical version.
Yeah,
that was
mostly
included
stuff pieced together in from the TV spots and all that stuff that was shown before, and in the Blu-ray cut.
Yeah, or rather the Blu-ray extras.
Yeah.
So it adds extraneous footage. It reintegrates some of that stuff back in there, and like you said, all that other stuff. So it does make for a different viewing experience. Would I say it makes for a vastly different experience? Personally, I say no in terms of the actual images you get.
Yeah.
But it does contribute to certain things by reintegrating certain elements into the mix. And I think it also highlights other things, but we'll talk about that. What is your initial impression of the Ultimate Fan Cut? Now, I keep calling it the Ultimate Fan Cut because there are apparently several different edits.
From what I've heard, yeah.
So, emphasize here, we saw the Ultimate Fan Cut, and right off the bat, I'll give it my seal of approval. It's badass. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. This is interesting because this is one of those where it's not like Batman versus Superman, in which it is completely different movie, but there is enough there to make it a different feeling movie.
Yeah, definitely so. But yeah, so again, emphasize Ultimate Fan Cut. We're not talking about any other version. That's the version we're talking about.
Yeah.
So if you go seek it out, it's available right now. It'll probably go on and off, an availability because it's not officially released.
We saw it on Vimeo. I don't know if we'll link it because of
probably won't
dubiousness
do that.
of that. But
also because we won't go back and
that's a good
add
point.
anything to our videos. But yeah. I mean, you gotta seek it out. But if you seek it out, it's definitely worth seeing. But yeah, your overall impression is
it's really good.
And I agree with that. It's actually really good. Do I feel it changed the film exceptionally? Like I said, no, but it did emphasize things that I felt were necessary to emphasize. Do you have any negatives in regards to this cut in your point of view?
Not really, honestly. There's a couple rough cuts in there. Not many. But a couple scenes were kind of trimmed a little bit, and you can kind of notice it if you remember the scenes. But I think they actually did a pretty good job. There's only one that I can think of where I was like, oh, there was a super obvious cut there. But for the most part, I don't really have any complaints.
Yeah, I'm the same. I actually thought the editing was rather smooth considering.
Yeah, considering the stuff they cut out, it's actually really impressive.
It was really good. I think I know what you're talking about. There is one part where the cut is abrupt right after something.
Yeah.
But you know what? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't make a big difference. It's not a sloppy cut. I'll say that.
No,
I mean, considering what they had at their available to them. But yeah, man, I think the biggest thing, again, no real big negatives. I think really what we have to highlight here is the positives, and I think the from the get-go, the biggest positive is that it has a proper introduction, and that's because as much as I did like Wonder Woman, I felt it was released at the wrong time.
Yeah,
it could have been released previous to, maybe in conjunction with Man of Steel, or maybe previous to it. But
putting it in there kind of broke up the flow.
Yeah, exactly. It broke up the narrative flow. And one thing we have to remember that at one point this was intended to be a Superman story arc. He's the central figure of this. And I'll bring that back up again. So if you watch this cut or the original cut of Justice League, I highly recommend you watch it in the order intended, which is Man of Steel, BVS, Batman vs. Superman, Director's Cut, or the Ultimate Cut, if you will, and then this, and or the original theatrical cut, because you really do get that narrative structure. And it is imperative that you watch the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs. Superman. Yeah. Otherwise, stuff doesn't make sense. And I know that was a big complaint from a lot of people about Justice League, that who's this Steppenwolf guy, and why is this happening, and it's there. It's seated in the BVS Ultimate Edition.
That's the thing.
Cut.
Like, a lot of the problems that came out from Justice League were problems that were caused because of how horribly cut. Again, not horribly cut. It's a fine movie, but how insanely cut BVS was.
Yeah.
So it does. Yeah, like you said, it does help to see the movies in order and the way they were intended to be seen.
Yeah. It's to date shocks me that they cut Batman versus Superman like that, and expected the majority of the audience to understand certain things. Yeah. I don't get that. And I love how subtle the movies can be. Batman vs. Superman introduced the concept of Steppenwolf and Darkseid in a very small and subtle way that this movie, Justice League, uses and expounds upon without spoon-feeding you everything. But that doesn't work if you see the theatrical cut of Batman vs. Superman. Yeah. So, it's, again, mind-boggling that they didn't release the director's cut of Batman vs. Superman. So when you do see it with that in mind, and or watch it for the first time, that cut. But anyway, I say all that to say this, because I think, and I know you agree with me on this, is that the beginning of this movie integrates footage from Batman vs. Superman, namely the tail end of it. And that's excellent because it emphasizes things that happen later on, namely when Superman returns. And it also reminds you that this is intended to be the finishing arc for this particular portion in regards to Superman's story. Justice League may be about this team, and it really is, but it's mostly about Superman. And I think,
which is something they tried with the original opening scene of the Justice League, but that face.
Yeah, it was face. That original, if you've seen the movie, that kind of like viral footage, cell phone footage, viral cell phone footage opening. When I first saw it, it did not inspire confidence.
It made
in me.
sense later on.
It
but
made
at
sense
first,
later
you
on.
were like, ooh.
At first, I was like, "Oh no, what is this?" And then after that, we had the Batman on the rooftop scene that had a lot of weird banter between he and the crook that he catches
Yeah.
to lure out the parademons, and that did not inspire confidence in me. But then, as the movie went along, really right after that, I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. We're in some territory that's good now." But immediately off the bat, this thing fixes that by reminding you this is what this is about, or is intended to be about. And then it does something that I do feel the theatrical cut needed to do, because they didn't release the Ultimate Edition. That's provide you with the information needed about the basics about Darkseid, about Apocalypse, about Steppenwolf. And the way it was done here, that little scroll intro at the beginning, that's it. That's all anybody with a fucking brain would need to. Correction. Anybody with a fucking brain that isn't familiar with the comics.
Yeah, that's the
would
thing.
Need.
That's the thing. Like you, me, and other people who know the stuff, the material, we knew what was happening.
Yeah.
So we couldn't put ourselves in the place of someone who just saw the theatrical BVS and then went into Justice League and was confused.
Yeah.
I understand that point.
Yeah.
It was easier for us to get into it because we know what's going on.
And that's the key here. It's not that the movie doesn't give you that information later. It does. It really does. And it does it exceptionally well, I thought. Especially with the flashbacks to Steppenwolf's first attack, the narration and stuff. I thought that was bad fucking ass. And it still is. But, like you said, those people that aren't familiar with the material, don't understand the concepts, that opening scroll would have been super necessary for them. And it would have been sufficient to give them the grasp, because otherwise, up to the point when we get that narration from Wonder Woman about what happened in the past, they would have been lost, they would have been grasping at straws trying to figure out exactly why and when. And so I understand that, and I know you do too. So the way they re-edited that beginning, great, fantastic. That's wonderful. And then on top of that, the rooftop Batman scene they cut down and kept it to the essential. That banter was not good looking. Or good sounding, so they cut it down to the essentials, and that's what we needed, and that looked great. And then, like you said to me before we watched this,
this was one of those where I was sent the link and told to watch it, and I watched the first 15 minutes, and I was like, yeah, we kind of have to watch this because of how subtle the changes are, but how an arguable improvement. Because if you like Justice League, that's fine. I like Justice League. I like the look Justice League has, but this is also a very good look for it.
Yeah, the changes to, I guess it was digital grading they did, a little shift on it. It puts it more in line with what Zack Snyder had.
It looks like it
and there's still scenes in the movie where you're like, Zack Snyder shot that versus Joss Whedon shot that. There's still scenes like that, but the fact that they added this element where it becomes a little bit more coherent in that sense, in the visual sense, it really adds something to it. Case in point, this Batman rooftop sequence doesn't look like a set anymore, so that's cool.
I know for a fact that was a Joss Whedon scene, so that might have been why it looked like a set.
It definitely was.
So yeah, it was actually kind of cool to see that scene recolored and not look super fake and have more of like a impact, instead of just being cool. Like that's the thing, just cool. This one, I think this cut added the impact back into.
It really did, and it's good that you mentioned that, because as I said previously, this reminds you that this is supposed to be the capper to a Superman story arc. It just happens to have this group of heroes that is gonna, kind of like, it's a jumping point for them as well, and they form the team. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. But the Superman element, and then I talk about this because they reintegrated, especially two deleted scenes back into the cut. And I understand why they deleted the scenes now, but seeing them in there was fantastic. It was kind of like a catch-22 for me, because those scenes were awesome. And the scenes I'm talking about is when Superman finally decides he's going to do something, and he goes back to what is it called? The Fortress of Solitude, and the much ballyhooed "where's his black suit" fucking bullshit that people started. It's just, it was there, and and you know what? It was wonderful that they used it as kind of symbolic that he walked past it and then it shut down on it, because he was Superman, and we had already seen in the badass previous confrontation between him and the Justice League what a Superman with no morals and with no ethics and with no humanity could be. We didn't need to see an extended version of that, and that sealed it, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see that, and hearing his father narrate his purpose.
I'm not exactly
awesome.
sure if that's in the. I don't know if they added that or if that was in the original scene because we haven't seen the Blu-ray cut.
The deleted scenes.
But if they added that, that was a really good choice.
Either way,
it worked
that
really
scene
well.
was excellent in there. Him visiting Alfred to reassure him that he's back in the fight, that also worked. But this is where the catch-22 for me comes. I love that was in there because it cemented that this was about Superman. But, and I told you this before we watched the Justice League in the theater first time, and it didn't bother me in the theatrical cut because it's not there. But now I see why they excised these scenes. And this, remember I told you that the studio wanted Wonder Woman basically, in essence, to deal the killing blow, if you will, quote unquote, if you will, to Steppenwolf, and that's what happens in this cut. Obviously, because that's the only footage available, but it still happens in this Ultimate fan cut as much as it does in the theatrical cut. So these Superman scenes end up not having the impact they should have had because him coming back, it reinstills hope in everything. He should have dealt that, and he does contribute to that final thing, but it should have been they need him, and he needs to do that final act to take away the evil that has come onto this world. Yeah,
the way they do it in that scene, that was the original intention to have Superman come back, but the way they do it is more of a team thing, which makes sense to build the Justice League, but as a closure to his story arc, it would have been a lot better.
It definitely. So that's where I'm at with that particular thing. That's why I say it's a catch-22. I love that they're in there, but the fact that they're in there reminds me that they changed that. And when that scene comes, I'm like, damn, it should have been his moment to shine. Because that is about reinstilling hope. And they even say it in the dialogue and stuff. And here's the thing. The theatrical cut and this cut, because of what happened behind the scenes, is bereft of the bigger themes of not hope, because that's still in there, but there was the themes of gods among men, and the resurrected messianic figure angle. Again, it reminds you in those scenes, and then it's taken away from him. I really think the Superman, I understand why, logistically, in terms of box office revenue, they said, oh, we got to put Wonder Woman in that final spotlight. And I get it, and I don't.
And it even makes sense.
Sad about it.
It even makes sense how they set it up. She's the only one that can kill a god or whatever. But for the themes of the original two movies, it would have been made a lot more sense to have him, have his storyline close off basically.
Yeah. Also, little things like Cyborg catching glimpses of the width and breadth of Darkseid's ultimate plot and stuff, like little things like that.
That was interesting because that was the scene Kevin Smith talked about being cut out that he saw, was one with flashbacks to
Apocalypse.
It was supposed to be to the Nightmare scene.
Oh yeah.
And then Darkseid shows up.
Yeah.
Now they do recreate that. It's a little rough, but it's in there.
Yeah, I thought that was
cool.
good. That should have stayed in there.
Yeah.
So if you see the Ultimate fan cut, there is a scene where Cyborg is trying to separate the cubes, and he catches a glimpse, or the mother boxes, I should say. He catches a glimpse of again the scope of Darkseid's plan, and there's scattered images, and they reuse footage from Batman versus Superman, and like you say, they just created new shots, namely Darkseid, which would have been great to see fully realized.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where that Darkseid was taken from, but it actually kind of fit. Pretty well.
I mean, you get the idea and you get the intention, and I was like, man, that should have been fully fleshed out on screen. So yeah, that was pretty fucking awesome. I will say this: I know it's been said and said again, but Superman's fucking lip. Yes, at times you can see the fucking that they CGI'd his little mustache out.
It's not as bad as everybody says.
Yeah. That's the thing. The pictures that they show you,
it was like a still that looked like shit, and it was fuzzy.
When you actually see it in motion.
The worst part, I do want to say that the worst effect that effect, that was the worst setup. But the worst of that effect is in the pre-scene in Justice League.
Yeah.
Where his face looks like butt. But the rest of the movie, it looked fine. It's a little smooth, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
So
although we watched this at a pretty high frame rate, I'm sorry, high frame rate. What was the pixels?
It was the highest one I could find. I don't know exactly.
It's still not up to Blu-ray standards.
Yeah,
but it was pretty clear picture. So I know this. The clearer it is, the better it looks. Yeah. And of course, the fuzzier the picture, the worse it looks. I mean, that's just common sense. But anyway,
yeah, that picture of him like this and shit is clearly just a still. It never looked that bad.
Yeah. But that's just an aside. The thing is that this cut is worth fucking checking out. It is pretty fucking awesome. Again, we thoroughly enjoyed the theatrical cut, and
I do wanna point out that they do cut a lot of the humor out. But I appreciate that they didn't cut all of it.
Yeah.
They trimmed the stuff that maybe went a little too far, or was like they cut out the whole brunch Flash thing, which I didn't mind, but it was like, okay, cool. The little build up, the serious build up scenes wasn't slowed down by those little scenes, and it actually ended up flowing a little better, weirdly, except for one scene that I can think of. But they didn't cut everything out, which is cool. It was like they still had some of the stuff that worked in there. So it wasn't just like some asshole going, "Oh, all the humor sucks, let's cut it out." Yeah, it was actually like thought out.
And that's good, because they could have gone haywire with that. I didn't mind the humor in the movie. Do I felt it needed it? I felt that, honestly, in the original theatrical cut, I really liked the Batman humor, because they played off what we know about Batman. You know, if you were going to introduce humor into it, which is fine, that was a way to go. That was one of the good ways to go about it. That we're so used to this rigid character, this stoic almost, that to play off of that would have been great. And then, but that they did it with all of them, and it worked as well as it did, in my opinion, was awesome, man. Especially the Flash, who I was afraid of. They would not handle humor. And I know that's a point of contention to some people. Some people were like, "That's not my Flash." Well, there's a million versions of him. Which one is it? Pick one. You can't have the same guy every time. You can pay homage to him. You could do right by him, and you could create and introduce new elements. But this Flash was a Flash that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I liked that they made him, rightfully enough, the central point of the humor.
Yeah, which is something I always said. Like, if they're gonna introduce humor, it makes sense to introduce it with Flash.
Yeah. And in this Ultimate Fan Cut, because they do trim a lot of the other, one-liners and stuff like that from the other people, he does seem a lot more like the focal point of the humor, which is great.
Yeah, actually, like, again, I like the original cut, so I don't know if I can say this one's I don't know if I can say one is better than the other, because they're both kind of really good in their own ways.
Yeah.
But this one, it makes more sense to cut out the stuff because they are trying to give it a little bit more heft.
Mm-hmm.
And they do succeed, so it'd be kind of weird to have like Batman be like, "Oh, I'm bleeding inside" or whatever.
Yeah.
Which did work in the original, but it'd be weird in this. So yeah, I thought the cuts were really good in this, and thankfully they didn't cut everything, like the Lasso or Aquaman thing.
Yeah, that was my favorite fucking, I guess,
humor
funny
piece.
scene. Yeah, that was my favorite scene when it came to the humor. So I'm glad they kept that. And, Jason Momoa does really good in portraying Arthur as a type of personality that allows for humor.
Yeah.
He's not as
want
reserved as, say, a Bruce Wayne or something like that.
I don't know if this will change when we rewatch the original cut or the actual cut, but the Atlantis stuff didn't seem as pointless this time. I remember that was one of my small complaints, was that they seemed a little bit throwaway. I know it was the same scenes, but maybe it was just because it was taken a little more serious.
Perhaps
they had a little bit more heft.
Yeah, I didn't have any point of contention with it, and I actually really enjoyed that. So I don't know. Maybe that was
it might have just been me. Again, like maybe it was because I already knew what was happening, and I was like, okay, this makes more sense now.
Yeah.
And I do want to point out that the effects look a lot better with this color in Atlantis. That is something that I noticed in the original. I was like, ooh, they're not bad. They just look fake. And with this new color, they look a lot more convincing. And that's something that throughout the whole movie, that all the effects look a lot more convincing with the new color scheme.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I really like that bright color scheme. It's really weird. Again, it's really weird. Both cuts are really good.
Yeah, so long story short, it's a cut worth seeking out if you can find it. It's available right now, but it probably won't be for long.
Yeah.
In which case, you just got to do some snooping around. Nothing goes away on the internet, so it'll be out there. I mean, the Phantom cut of fucking Phantom, or what was it? Was that the fan edit of Phantom Menace is still out there.
Yeah.
Despite everybody trying to burn it.
And there's definitely a big community wanting to keep this cut alive and wanting to bring back Snyder and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I don't agree with a lot of what they do, because now they're just shitting on anything that isn't Zack Snyder, which is not the way to go around it, because it's just going to kill the franchise. Yep. But I do understand where they're coming from, because I thoroughly liked Zack Snyder's movie.
Yeah, it's kind of
just don't be an idiot.
A corner in a hard place. I mean, a rock in a hard place. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because we have the people that do want that, but are gung ho about getting that specific thing, and then we will have the people that are just assholes jumping on a bandwagon,
shitting on.
Oh, we gotta hate Zack Snyder because that guy hates him. So who wins? Nobody wins, because both are rebelling against each other. When in reality, I think the message ultimately here is we got a handful of badass movies.
Yeah.
And people are slowly waking up to that. You know, it's taken some time, but people are going, you know what? We might have been wrong about this, but I'm glad that the tides are turning. But we'll see what the fuck, because now it's all going to change. So
we do hope it's never going to happen, but I do hope we do get to see Zack Snyder's cut someday.
Yeah. Perhaps we will.
Never going to happen, though. Maybe the DVD, the Blu-ray is apparently selling extremely well, so they might want to milk that little cash cow a little.
And then the question will come up, will they ignore that cut? Will they not ignore?
That's the thing. That's what happens when you do these cuts. It makes a confusing timeline for people.
Yeah. But anyway, let's give this a final rating. The Justice League Ultimate Fan Cut. Go.
I don't remember exactly what I gave the other cut. So
doesn't matter.
Give this one a cut rating. I'm giving it a 9.5. It's really good.
Yeah, I'll give it a solid 9. It's pretty fucking great, man. The only reason I don't go a little higher is because that Superman thing really bothered me in this. As great as it was to see those scenes reintegrated, it just emphasized what I originally felt.
Yeah.
But now it made it blaring. Whereas the theatrical cut, it was like, oh, I can accept this. Here it was like, God damn it, it should have been Superman.
And again, it's not the fault of the people.
No, not at all. It's what they had.
Yeah.
It's what was available to them. It's the footage they had, and they did what they could. And anyway, check this cut out. This has been Ahab and Guntik talking about the League of Justice. Now we're going to go back into our Fat League.
Mm-hmm. And fart.
Yeah, because that's what fat guys do according to Eddie Murphy.
It's true.
And he was right. But anyway, hit like, share, subscribe, and those notification buttons, because we're out.